Hey there, I'm Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a little tiny Super Mario pod puppet. I call them pod puppets because they kind of look like little pods, and they can be finger puppets. For this pattern, you're going to need the following materials. I'm using all worsted weight yarn in red, white, brown, tan, blue, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of black, and I think I might have already said white. Some yarn suggestions here. I'm using Lily Sugar and Cream for the majority of the yarn, except for the tan here. I think I'm using a red heart called Scrubby. I think it's called Scrubby. I'm not really sure, but the rest is all Lily Sugar and Cream, and I think Lily Sugar and Cream has a good tan as well. Yeah, because I'm using all worsted weight yarn, I'm using a size G 4mm crochet hook. You'll also need some safety bead eyes. You can use bullion knots in place of these safety bead eyes. I think I'm using 8mm there. And you'll need a darning needle. I'm actually using two different kinds of darning needles for this video. One that's a little bit slightly bigger, and this is for just simple sewing together. And then one that's slightly smaller. You don't need to do this. I just find it a little bit easier to get small detail like the little M here using a slightly smaller needle, and I like using crimped ends like this. It makes it easier to get in and out. So yeah, without further ado, let's get hooking. This whole pattern is actually done in just one piece, so you won't need to sew any pieces on except for embroidery. Let me think if there's anything else. Oh, you'll need stuffing, of course, as well. Okay, well, without further ado, let's get hooking. Okay, so to start, we're going to be using our red yarn here, and I'm going to do a magic loop method. You can also do the chain 2 method if you feel more comfortable with it. And we're going to start with round 1 by single crocheting 6 times into the second chain from the hook or into the magic loop. Obviously, we're doing the magic loop here. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And actually, the beginning of this pattern is pretty straightforward if you've done any of my patterns before. Okay, so that's going to be the end of round 1. For round 2, we're just going to be doing an increase into each stitch all the way around. So we're just going to go into this first stitch here. We're going to work around this tail just for the first few stitches. We're just going to do an increase, which means we're going to do 2 single crochets into each one of these stitches. So there you go, 1, 2. Continue around. Here's the next. 3 and 4. We'll just keep doing that all the way around. And you should have 12 stitches around by the end of this round. We're increasing up from 6 stitches to 12 stitches around. Okay. This is what I mean by the beginning of this pattern is very repetitive. I usually do this exact same thing with really a majority of my patterns. I begin by doing these increases. For round 3, we're going to do a single crochet into the first stitch right here, and then an increase into the next stitch right there. For an increase, we're going to be doing 2 single crochets. There we go. So we're doing a single crochet and then an increase, and we're going to repeat that 6 times total. So let's do it again. Here's our second repeat. Single crochet, and then an increase. And if you repeat this 6 times total, you're going to go up from 12 stitches to 18 stitches by the end of round 3. Round 3 is where it's getting just a little bit bigger. Okay. Okay. All right, and that's going to be the end of round 3. For round 4, we're just going to do a single crochet into each stitch all the way around. So this round is pretty easy. Just a single crochet into every stitch around. And like before, there should be 18 stitches around. Now the thing to watch out for is by the end of this round, we're going to be doing a really tricky color change thing that I call a split, which I'll talk about when I get to the end of this round. But it can be a little tricky. I'm working right now on a video to explain the split a little bit more, but I'll teach you exactly how to do the split that we need in this video, of course. but we're essentially turning one round into 2 rounds for just a few stitches to make his hat brim. Okay, so this is going to be the end of round 3 right there, or just single crochets around. And as you can see, I'm not finishing this stitch up because we want to change colors now. So here is where we'll grab our tan. Grab this tan here. Okay, and this is going to be round 5. So for round 5, we're going to start by changing to this tan color. So we're going to flip under. Okay, I placed it over our piece, and we're going to flip under, and we're going to yarn over with the tan and just pull it through. Okay, there you go. And we're going to pull this loop a little bit out more, and we're going to take our crochet hook and we're going to put it back into the stitch. So we're going to go back into the red and back under this red one right here. So it's back into the stitch, and now we're going to yarn over with our red and pull that through. Okay, so now you should have 2 loops sticking out of the top, you see? Okay, so we're going to start with the red loop. And with our red loop, we're going to work only into the front loops of the next 6 stitches. So we're going to work only into these front loops, meaning the loops closest to us. And into the front loops, we're going to do a single crochet. We're going to do 1 single crochet. And now we're going to do 4 half double crochets. For a half double crochet, we're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch right here, and yarn over and pull one through, and then yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. We're going to do 4 of those in a row. So there's our first one. Don't forget we're working in our front loops only. So front loop, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all of those. Okay, so there's 2. Here's our third. And then 1 more half double crochet. Okay, and into this next one we're going to do a single crochet. And we're going to pull this loop out a little bit and leave it there. We'll come back to it in just a second. Now we're going to go back to our tan loop. Put your hook in there and then pull it tighter. And we're going to work into the back loops of the stitches that we just made. So we're going to count back. So here's our last one that we did our last single crochet in. We're going to count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So into that back loop is our first one right here. So we're going to go ahead and put our hook in there. And we're going to just do a single crochet into each one of these back loops with this tan color. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here is our 6th. Okay, now we can cut this yarn. You don't need a very long end here, so we're just going to cut this. We're also going to cut this inside right here because we don't really need that. We'll throw that to the side. We'll come back to this tan in a little bit. And we're just going to pull this loop all the way out, just like that. It'll create a little knot there. Now we're going to go back to our original red loop here. Put our crochet hook in there. We're going to place this tan over, and now we're going to be working into both loops of the next stitches. Okay, so just into both of these loops right here. We're going to do a single crochet into the next one, just locking that tan in there. And as you can see, we made our little hat brim. That's what we were just working on. Okay, so now now that we're working into both loops, we're going to single crochet 10. So we just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, here's 10. Now we're going to hold it there for just a second. We're not done with this round just yet. Now we want to change to brown. So we want to grab our brown yarn, and we're going to start working on his hair. We're going to place the brown yarn in between, and we're going to do a quick color change to this brown. So we're just going to flip it under and pull through with brown. Okay. And now we're going to just work into the back loops only, meaning the loops furthest away from us right there. And we're going to put our crochet hook in there. We're just going to do a single crochet into these next 2 stitches in this brown. I'm going to work around this red just for 1 stitch, just to kind of lock it into place. And now I can actually cut this red yarn, pull it to the side. We'll come back to that later when we get to his shirt. So we're going to do 2 single crochets in this brown. So there's our first, here's our second, and again we're working only in that back loop. Oops. There we go. And we're going to hold it here. This is the end of our round. Let's see, we're on round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is our end of round 5. We're on round 6. Now we're going to go back to our tan color and place that in between. Hold it down with our index finger, and we're going to flip it under so that tan is on top and pull it through. Okay. Now, into our next stitches, we're going to single crochet into both loops. We're going to do 6 in tan. So we're going to go 1. So in all of these tan stitches from our previous round, we're working our stitches in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're ignoring these red stitches here completely because this is our hat brim. So those are 6 stitches. I'm actually going to have to pull that last one out just slightly because we're going to change back to our brown yarn. So we're going to cut our brown yarn now. Okay. Pull this brown. And we're going to come back to it. So we're going to place our brown yarn in between these two. And we're going to flip under with our brown yarn, yarn over, and pull through with brown. Okay? Now, in our pattern, you'll see that certain stitches are marked with an underline. That means that we're working in the back loops only. But essentially, you can just assume that if you're working into red stitches here, then you're going to be working into the back loops only. And this is so that you can make it look like he's actually wearing a hat. So you can see it just subtly right there. So into our next 2 stitches, we're going to do all brown stitches. So we're going to go, if you look at the brim here, you'll see our single crochet. Here's our 4 half double crochets and our single crochet, which means this stitch right there is going to be our next one. Okay? So we're going to work into the back loop of this next stitch. We're going to do 2 in our brown yarn. So 1 and 2. And we're going to change back to tan. So we're going to place it in between, flip it under, yarn over, and pull through with tan. Tighten that brown yarn. Now we're going to do 1 stitch in tan. Place that brown in between and change back to brown. Oops. Okay. And we're going to do 6 in our brown yarn here. We're just going to do, and I pulled the tan to the side for just a second, just so it doesn't muddle our stitches up a little bit. So we're just going to crochet 6 times with this brown yarn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here's our 6th. Okay, now we're going to pull this tan yarn back over. I don't need to cut it. Instead, I'm just going to use my finger in between just to add a little bit of spacer because I don't want it too tight against it. It might pull in the head a little bit. So we're just going to put our finger as a spacer, flip it under, and pull through. Oops, pull through with our tan yarn. Okay, make sure it's got a little bit of space there. Okay. Now with our tan yarn, we're going to work around our brown yarn just for 1 stitch. We're going to still work into the back loop because we're working in a red stitch. Just like that. And we can cut this brown yarn loose. We'll come back to it when we get to our feet. But we won't need it for a little bit. And now working into both loops for our final 2 stitches in this round, we're going to do a single crochet working into both of these loops here. So 1 and 2. Okay. All right, so that's going to be the end of round 6. For round 7, let's get a little bit more of our yarn here. For round 7, we're going to be working only in this tan yarn, and we're going to work into both loops the entire time. Now the cool thing is we're going to add our nose actually, so we don't have to sew it on later. We're just going to add it using a bobble stitch, which I'll show you in just a second. Okay, so for round 7, we're going to start by single crocheting 3. 1, 2, and there is 3. And now we're going to do a bobble stitch. So for a bobble stitch, we're going to yarn over, go into our next stitch, yarn over again, and pull a loop through. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through 2. Just like we're doing a double crochet, except we're skipping that last part. See, so we're not doing that last section there. And we're going to repeat that 4 times total. So let's do it again. We're going to yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over and pull a loop through, then yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, so there's 2 repeats. Let's do our third. Yarn over into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2. And one more, yarn over into the stitch, yarn over and pull 1 through, yarn over and pull through 2. There you go. And that's going to be how you're going to do bobble stitch. To finish the bobble stitch up, we're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. And there you go. Now for the rest of this round, 14 more stitches, we're just going to single crochet into each stitch around. So we're just going to keep single crocheting around in our tan yarn. And again, we're just working into both loops all the way around. So it's relatively simple. Okay. Right. Get a little bit more yarn here. We're coming to the end of our round here. There we go. Okay, so that's the end of round 7. For round 8, we're going to just do a single crochet into each stitch all the way around. Just all in our tan yarn, just do a single crochet all the way around. Pretty easy. And when we get to the end of this round, oh, by the way, there should be 18 stitches around. In fact, there's 18 stitches around pretty much the entire piece until we get to where we need to sew it together. So basically the entire time you just need to do a single crochet. Or there should be 18 stitches around. I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say. Okay. Okay, and now we're coming to the end of our round here. Now I'm going to stop 1 stitch early because we're going to need to do a color change at the end of this round. But before we do that, before we continue on, I want to embroider on the M on the top here. So instead we're going to just pull this loop out and we're going to start embroidering on our hat. So we can have our little M logo there. So we're going to grab this, our fatter darning needle here, and grab some of our white yarn, if I can find it. There we go. And you don't need too much white yarn. That's probably fine. We'll thread it on our darning needle. And the hat, the embroidery is actually surprisingly easy. I mean, it's not super easy, but it's easier than you think, I think. So we're going to find our half double crochets in the hat. Okay, so find these half double crochets. You can see it right here is 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to go ahead and come into where that first half double crochet starts, right there. Okay, pull that white yarn out. And we're just going to go over to where the other half double crochet is. So 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches over, and then come out from where we first came in. And we're going to repeat that going around, I think 5 times in a row. So we're just going to go 1. You pull it somewhat tight. You don't need it too tight. Here's 2. And this is just the easiest way I've found to do it. You can also use felt if you'd like. 3. There's 4. And we'll just do one more for good measure, just to keep it like a real logo there. So right there. There's 4. You can see there's our white. Okay, so we're just making like a little bit of white on his hat there. Now we can double knot these two ends. You don't want to pull it too tight, but you also don't want to leave it too loose. So just tight enough so that it doesn't come loose at all. There we go. We'll cut these ends on the inside. And now we will toss this needle to the side. We're going to shift over to our slightly smaller needle just to make it easier. You can use that bigger needle. In fact, I did on this other my first version of this Mario. I used a big needle for this M, but I think it's going to be easier to use a smaller needle. We're going to need a little bit more of our red yarn here, and you won't need very much, as you can see. We're just doing the logo, the M. Get this out of the way. Now we're going to thread this onto our needle. This needle is slightly smaller, so it's a little bit more difficult to thread. There we go. Okay. And for the M, it's really easy. We're basically just embroidering on the M. The way I like to do it is I come out from the inside, right there, so that one strand of yarn is on the bottom. And I want it slightly over to the left of middle. Then we're going to go straight up, just a few, right there. Okay. See, there's our left side of the M. Now we're going to come back out through the very center, as close to the center as we can. That looks pretty good. Let's go with right there. Okay, we're going to come up and go through where the top of our red is, right there. Okay, so there's our do. Okay, so next we're going to do our second long piece. So we're going to come out through, our second left side of the M, you know what I mean? You'll see what I mean in just a second. We're going to go through the left side right there. Okay. We're going to go straight up to right, say right there. And now here's the tricky part. We want to come out straight through where that middle of the M is. Might take me a second to... There we go. Straight to that, and then back up through where we came down. Right, like that. All right, and there we go. We have just a very simple Mario's M. And of course, if you're doing Luigi, you want to do an L instead of an M. And we'll go ahead and pull this one tighter slightly, and we'll just double knot these two on the inside. Okay. There we go. And now we have successfully embroidered on our Mario logo. Okay, and we can continue crocheting now. So let's get our crochet hook back in there. All right, and we'll have to finish up this round with just finishing that single crochet. And now we're going to change to our red yarn. We're going to need our red and our blue yarn now. So grab your red yarn first, place it in between, and we're going to change over to our red yarn. We're on round 9, I think. Pull through, There we go. Okay, so now we can cut this tan. We're actually completely done using our tan yarn. We don't need it at all anymore. So we'll just go ahead and throw it to the side. And we need our blue yarn now. Okay. So what we're going to do is first we're going to do, again, this round is all single crochets. We're just going to single crochet into the next stitch. We're starting with our red here. Now we want to take our blue, place it in between. We're going to change to our blue yarn. So we want one single crochet in red. Okay, our second single crochet is going to be in blue. Okay, our third one, let's see, our next four stitches are going to be in red, so we're going to change back over to red. So we did one red, one blue. Now we're going to do 4 red. I'm not going to crochet around this blue because I don't want it to muddle up my stitches, so I'm just going to pull the blue to the side like we did with that tan yarn before. We're going to do 4 single crochets in red, so we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to grab our blue, place it over, and then change over to blue. Oh, I forgot to mention, if you wanted to do Luigi instead of Mario, you'll do one more round of just tan single crochets before our color change around here that we're currently working on. Okay, so we want 1 stitch in blue. And then we want to do 3 stitches in red, so we change back over to red. Okay, so we got red, blue, 4 red, 1 blue. And then we're going to do 3 red. Place this blue to the side. 1, 2, here's our 3. Take our blue, we're going to change back over to it just for 1 stitch. Boom. Okay, 1 stitch in blue. Change back to red. Now we're going to do 4 more stitches in red. Take our blue, place it to the side. 1, 2, 3, and here's our 4th. Change back to our blue. Okay. Do 1 stitch in blue. Oops. 1 stitch in blue, and then we're going to change back to our red. So again, that's 1 red, 1 blue, 4 red, 1 blue, 3 red, 1 blue, 4 red, 1 blue, and then our last 2 here are going to be red. And I'm just going to work around our blue for these last 2. Now for this last one, I'm just going to take a second before I do that stitch. I'm going to cut my red yarn actually a little bit short, like right there. This way I have enough so I can still work in my red yarn for just 1 stitch, but I can still move that red yarn aside and come back to it in a second. I'm going to pull this loop out just a little bit. So before we finish this round, I'd like to add our face on, just our eyes and our mustache. So first off, let's add the eyes. So you want to use Saftey bead eyes for that. And like I said before, I'm using, I think, size 8mm, maybe 6mm. And we're going to take our needle. Now the best way to do this is we're just going to put them on the sides of the nose, actually 2 stitches away from each side of the nose. So obviously I'm holding it upside down here. So we're going to take our nose here, and we're going to look over 1, 2 stitches to the right, here, right there. And we want to go actually in the very center of that stitch. We want to take our needle, we want to place it right in the center of that stitch. Okay. Pull it almost all the way through so that just the fat part of our needle's in there. And we're just going to twist that needle. And that's just going to stretch out that stitch so we know exactly where to put the eye. Now we're going to take our Saftey bead eye. We're going to go up and we're just going to place it into the middle of that stitch and just kind of wiggle it. You can feel it. I can feel it coming through on the other side. Now if you need to, just use your nails and just kind of like pry the stitch over it like that. Okay. There's one eye. One eye's on. Now let's do the same thing to 2 stitches over from the left of the nose. So we go 1, 2 over right here. Same thing, we take our needle, place it in between that stitch, almost all the way through, and just twist it so we know where to put the eye. Take our eye, place it in between the 2 here, just kind of wiggle its way in there. There we go. Now we can just lock these eyes on with these little ends. Oops. Okay, we got one eye locked on. Here's the other one. There we go. Okay, so we got our eyes on, we got our little hat on. Now, we of course need Mario's signature mustache. He looks naked without it. So we need our little bit of our black yarn. Most people don't realize this, but Mario actually has a different shade mustache than he does hair. He has brown hair and a black mustache. It's weird, but it's just the way it is. Now, there's a special way to that I embroider on this mustache. You want to do a couple stitches. He's kind of got like a little, it looks like this. Okay, so there's like 4 bumps on the bottom of it. So we want to take our needle here, and we want to first make our bumps. So we're going to let's just start from coming from the, actually just under the eye. So just under this eye right here. Okay, and we're just going to go in 1 stitch over to the left and come out by coming through the bottom of this nose right there. Okay, there's 1. Now we're going to go back into this stitch right here and come out, back out through the nose, under the nose rather, right there. Okay, so there's 1, 2. You see how we're making those bumps. Go into the next stitch over right there, and then out through under the other eye. Down, and then come out through the center of the stitch to the left of where that came. So see the very center of that stitch? Watch my needle come out through the very center of that. Right there. See? And we're just going to go across and back through the center of where our nose is, right there. And come back out through the center of the stitch on the left side. Or the right side, or whatever this side is. Okay. And then back through the center, where the nose connects. And that'll create the bumps and give him a full mustache. There we go. Pull them tight, and then we can just double knot these 2 on the inside. 1 and 2, and just cut the yarn. There we go. Super easy mustache face done. Look at that. Our Mario is totally coming together now. Okay, we'll place these to the side. And let's get back to crocheting. Now, we're going to need to finish up this last single crochet, but we want to change to white after this crochet. So we're going to pull halfway through there. And then we want to change to white yarn. We're going to make his gloves now. Place this white yarn in between there. And we're going to change to white. There we go. And into this next stitch, we want to do a bobble stitch working in all white. So an all white bobble stitch into this next stitch. And we're going to work into both loops. We're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch. I'm working around these 2 ends to hide the red end, and because we're going to change to the blue end after this bobble stitch. So we're going to go into the next stitch, pull it through, and pull through 2, the same way we made the nose. So there's our first part of the bobble stitch. We want to do that 4 times. 2, 3, and 4. And we want to pull through all these loops, but we want to use blue. So we're going to change over to blue. We're going to pull through all the loops with blue. There we go. That's going to be one glove. Now we're going to single crochet around. We actually don't need to work around this red anymore because it's locked in there. We're going to single crochet around this white with this blue yarn into the next stitch. And that'll kind of lock it into place. We can, I guess, let's cut this white yarn so we don't mess around with it for a few stitches. So there's going to be 7 single crochets in blue in between the gloves. So there's our first. Let's do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here's our 7th. We're going to halfway do it because we need to change back to our white yarn. Out of a bit of a tangle, 1 second. There we go. Grab our white yarn. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to make a glove. And over with white, pull through. And we're just going to do another bobble stitch into the next stitch, all in white. Same thing. Yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2. And repeat that 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, and one more. It's going to be 4. Now we're going to yarn over with blue and pull through all the loops on the hook, just like that. Now we can single crochet into the next stitch in blue around our white stitch there. Pull the white tighter. We can cut the white, pull it through, and we're actually done with our white yarn now. So we can go ahead and put this yarn to the side. That always feels so nice to do. Just get rid of another yarn. We're done with white, red, and tan. All we have left are blue and brown. We have a little bit of yellow at the end. Okay, so we're going to finish this round up by just doing single crochets in blue. I believe you have, let's see, 10 more stitches in blue. So we've got 1, 2. That was our first one, was right after the arm. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, 9. Sorry, not 10, 9. There we go. Okay, so that's going to be the end of round, I think, 10. For round 11, let's see, let's make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, for round 11, we're just doing a single crochet into each stitch all the way around in blue. So we're just single crocheting around in blue, just kind of a nice break from doing weird color changes, just for a sec. We're going to need to do some color changes again when we get to the next round for our feet, but for this round, it's just 18 single crochets around, all in blue, making his overalls. And overall, this pattern is not too tough. It's a pretty quick pattern too, which is why I really like this pattern. I mean, I'm going relatively slow to show you how to do it, and we've only been working on it for like 40 minutes, so I like this pattern a lot. It's quick, it's easy, it's a great last minute gift. All right, so that's going to be the end of that round. For round 12, we're going to be making our last round of regular old stitches. So we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. We're going to stop a little early on that second one because we're going to need to get our brown yarn here. Let's wipe some of that lint off. We're going to change to our brown yarn. And we're going to do a bobble stitch in brown yarn to make the foot. Okay, so we're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull one through, pull through 2. Okay? Repeat that 4 times. So here's our second repeat, third repeat, fourth, and then we're going to yarn over with blue and pull through all the loops on the hook. There we go. And now we'll single crochet into the next stitch. I'm going to work around this brown yarn to lock it in a little bit better and pull the blue tight. There we go. There's 1 foot. Now our feet are 4 single crochets apart. So we got 1 blue. We need 3 more. 2, 3, and here's our 4th. Now I just put the brown aside for a few stitches just so I didn't have to crochet around it. Now we want to come back to our brown, so we're going to place it in between. See how I'm using my index finger to give a little spacer, and our left index finger to get ready to turn it around, and yarn over, and pull through with our blue yarn. There we go. I'm going to lock that blue a little tighter, and do our next leg in our brown yarn. It's the same thing, we're just doing a bobble stitch. 4 repeats of a double crochet. 1, 2, 3, and here's our last one, 4. There we go. Now we'll yarn over with our blue and pull through all those feet. We're going to single crochet into the next stitch around this brown yarn just to lock it in. Pull the brown tight, pull the blue tight. There we go. We can cut our brown yarn loose. We're actually done with our brown yarn now. Only needed it for the hair and the feet. There we go. Just tuck that yarn in there. Now for the rest of this round, I believe it's 10 single crochets in blue. So we did 1 right after that foot. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get a little bit more of that blue yarn. 7, 8, 9, and here is our 10th. And I'm just going to pull this loop a little bit loose because we want to just do a quick embroider on for yellow dots on his overalls so that he's wearing, you know, he's got these little 2 yellow buttons. So we're going to need a little bit, just a small amount of yellow yarn. Even that might be a little much. Go. We'll thread it on our darning needle here. Our ding-dang darning needle. And we're just going to go out through the stitch to the next to both of these arms. So right there. Okay? So just a stitch over to the left and the right of the arms. We're going to go through one and then over through the stitch to the right of that and then back out through the same stitch. We're just going to do a 2 loops over. So we got 1, and let's do again in. Let's go straight in like that. There you go. Just a simple like boop boop. There we go. Like boop boop. You know the phrase. We'll just go ahead and double knot these 2 ends, and we'll do the same thing on the other side for his other overall. And overall, this is pretty easy. I just can't skip over a pun like that, you know what I mean? There we go. Throw this yellow to the side. Let's do the same thing on the other side. 1 stitch over from the arm. Into the next stitch over. Out through the same stitch. And then back down. There we go. And we'll go ahead and double knot these 2. And now we have his buttons. Whoop, one more double knot. There we go. We can cut this yarn. Throw that to the side. There we go. Now let's finish this this Mario up so he can get to saving the Mushroom Kingdom. Get our blue yarn back in there. Now for our final 2 rounds, we're on rounds, I think we're on round 12 or 13. We're going to start by doing a single crochet into the first stitch, right there. And then we're going to do a decrease, a sharp decrease, not an invisible decrease, but a sharp decrease into the next stitch. To do that, we're going to go into the next stitch like we're doing a regular single crochet and yarn over and pull through. Then we're going to go into the next stitch right here, yarn over and pull through a second loop like that. So you should have 3 on the hook now. And we're going to take that second loop and pull it through the 2 on the hook. It's kind of like a slip stitch 2 together. Okay, and we're going to repeat that process of doing a single crochet and then a sharp decrease 6 times total. So let's do our second repeat here. Single crochet 1, sharp decrease 1. 1, 2, pull that second one through. Okay, there's a second repeat. And this is going to bring you down from 18 stitches to 12 stitches around. Single crochet, sharp decrease. Single crochet, and a sharp decrease. Pretty easy. Okay, now here is where we are going to divert a little bit. So if you want to just make him a regular old pod puppet where he's stuffed on the bottom, here I'll show you a good example of that. Here I have Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's just stuffed all the way. He's just closed up at the bottom so that he sits up straight. That's one option. If you want to do that, you'll just do a decrease, just like we were doing in the round before, into each stitch around. Okay, so that'll bring you down from 12 stitches to 6 stitches around, and then you can stuff them up and sew it closed. But I want to make mine into a finger puppet. So what we're going to do is instead we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch right here, just like that. We're going to pull out like that much blue yarn, cut loose, and just pull it all the way through like that. Okay, we're going to come back to this guy in just a second. First, we need to make our little part for our finger to go on. So we're going to make a magic loop method with this blue, pull a loop through, okay, and we're going to do 6 single crochets into the magic loop, or into the second chain from the hook if you're doing it that way. 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to pull this magic loop a little tighter. And I'm going to do a video for how to do this for pretty much anything that you want to turn into a finger puppet. I'll probably do that soon on my YouTube channel. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For round 2 of the finger puppet edition, we're going to do a single crochet into the first stitch right here. Oops. Gosh, I can't. There we go. There we go. Single crochet into the first stitch. I'm working around this tail end just for that first stitch right there. And then we're going to work an increase into the next stitch. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to repeat that process 3 times total. So a single crochet, then an increase, and repeat it 2 more times. Here's a second repeat, single crochet, then an increase, single crochet, and an increase. And that's going to bring you up from 6 stitches around to 9 stitches around. Okay, so for the next 4 rounds in a row, we're going to do a single crochet into each stitch around. So let's just do that. We're just going to do a single crochet in each stitch around, and there should be 9 stitches into each round. So 4 rounds of just single crochets. Now this is a little tedious, so I'm going to go ahead and do it off camera, and I'll be back in just a second once I finish our 4 rounds of single crochets. Okay, so I have one more single crochet right here, and that'll be the end of our 4 rounds of single crochets. Now the last thing I want to do for this finger puppet edition is I want to do a slip stitch into the next stitch right here. We're going to cut the yarn. You want enough to sew them together, and we'll just pull it all the way through. So now we need to add this finger puppet edition on the inside of our finger puppet here. So what we're going to do first is I want to take the inside loop right here, and we want to thread it on a needle and pull it straight, go straight through the center of our finger puppet addition right there, like so. Okay, now before I continue on and put this in the inside, let's stuff our guy just a little bit. You don't really need to stuff him too much, especially if you're adding this finger puppet addition. So we're just going to add a little bit of stuffing. You want more on the top. Let's see. Got the stuffing around here somewhere. There it is. This might be actually too much stuffing. Just need a little bit. And you want to make some room on the inside for your finger, but you want a little bit of stuffing on each side of your finger. So it's kind of got like a little gap for our little finger puppet addition to go in there. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, so we're going to take this inside one, see how it's coming off the top like that. We're going to go straight through the center and right through the very top of our Mario. Just pull it out. There you go. You can pull it almost all the way in. Add your finger in there and just make sure it's on the inside, like so. You want these two ends to line up. And we're going to thread, you can thread pretty much either one of these. Let's just thread the inside one instead though. I'm going to thread that on a needle. And we're just going to sew these together. Now the thing is, there are more stitches on the outside rounds than there are on the inside rounds. So you're going to have to do some kind of like a tricky system here. So first we're going to go into our stitch and then into the one on the body, like that. So we're going to go one. Here's our second one. And you want to repeat the second one twice. I think that might be confusing. What I mean is you want to go in, how do I explain this? So our first stitch on the inside of the finger puppet part, we went in one and then two. This is our second stitch of our finger puppet part. And we have more stitches on the outside finger puppet part. So in the next part, we want to go into the next stitch on our body and then in through the same stitch that we just worked into on our finger puppet part. Now, it's okay if you mess this up. You're never going to see it anyhow. So what's more important is just sewing it together. But this way, it'll be more of a clean round. So you can see here, see how these both go into the same stitch there? Here, we'll show you again. 1 second. So now we go into the next stitch of our body, into the next stitch of our finger puppet part. Okay, and then next stitch on our body, next stitch on our finger puppet part, next stitch on our body, same stitch on our finger puppet part. See what I mean? It's like every other stitch we do that. Next stitch on our body, next stitch finger puppet, next stitch body, next stitch finger puppet, next stitch body, same stitch finger puppet. Next stitch next stitch body, next stitch finger puppet, next stitch body, next stitch finger puppet, next stitch body, same stitch finger puppet. And we're coming to the end here. Next stitch body, next stitch finger puppet, and that's the last one. You can see that I'm pulling the end here. And how you're going to finish this up is we're just going to double knot these two ends. One, two. We'll thread them both on a needle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them so that they're even right here. And take both of these ends, thread it on the needle, go into the body, like into the gap in between the finger puppet part and the body, and out through just a stitch, just a little bit over. Right there is fine. And that should pull those knots on the inside. Make a little room there. And we'll just cut these two close. Okay, we can pull this top one so that the inside finger puppet part goes a little bit closer. Cut that close, and just use the back of our needle to stuff in these extra ends. And there we go, we have a finger puppet Mario, which we can use to save the Mushroom Kingdom. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like it down below. Share it with anybody that you think, share this pattern with anybody that you think would like to purchase it. Thank you so much for being a Club Crochet member, if you are one. And yeah, pasta la pizza and happy hooking. Yahoo! Wahoo!